NBC Chicago, in partnership with the Business Leadership Council, WVON, Chicago Urban League, and NABJ Chicago, present Decision 2023, Chicago Mayoral Candidate Forum.
Brooks with NBC Chicago.
Oh, and I'm Matt McGill from radio station WVON, Vaughn TV, WVON streaming service, and we're streaming live tonight.
And during the next 2 hours, you're going to hear from the 9 candidates for mayor, and we're going to talk about the issues that are important to the African-American community.
Our forum is brought to you by NBC Chicago, radio station WVON, our friends from the Business Leadership Council, the Urban League, and NABJ Chicago, the National Association of Black Journalists.
Let's introduce you to our candidates. They are standing in the order in which they appear on the ballot. They include Chicago activist Jamal Green, 4th Ward Alderwoman Sophia King, State Representative Cam Buckner from the 26th District, businessman and philanthropist Willie Wilson,
Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, former Chicago Public Schools CEO Paul Vallis, the mayor of the city of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, Alderman of the 6th Ward, Roderick T. Sawyer, and Congressman Chuy Garcia representing the 6th District of the state of Illinois.
We welcome you, candidates, and we want to break down the rules for you. You will each have 45 seconds to answer each question that is posed to you. A bell will ring at 45 seconds. We do ask that you stop talking at that time. We reserve the right to cut your mic if you do not stop talking. If we feel a need to follow up on a question or feel a rebuttal is warranted, you will be allowed an additional 30 seconds. If we feel a need, rather, I should say all candidates will not necessarily be asked the same questions, but often you are. Matt and I will ask most of the questions, and some will also come from NABJ Chicago's Tiffany Walden, the editor-in-chief of the Tribe. Now let's get started.
All right, Jamal Green, you are 27 years old and never held elected office. Can you share with our viewers why you think citizens of Chicago can have confidence in your ability to lead the city, to swim with the sharks, negotiate big contracts on behalf of the taxpayers?
Well, because I've been doing the work for many years already. And if we talk about experience, I'm willing to put all of the results that I've garnered for the communities against all of the political records of everybody here combined. We fought Chase Bank, got them to give back $1 billion in their redlining communities. No politician stood next to us. When businesses were looted, gave out $250,000 to make sure that businesses were open. You know, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I've invested in many different businesses, balanced multi-million-dollar budgets, as well as had the pulse of the people for many years. It's time for someone who cares about the people and can connect to this generation and assemble a team of folks that can propel this city to a better future. And I'm ready to do that on day one.
Okay.
Right. Sophia King, you opposed Michael Reese as a site for a Chicago-based casino, describing the move as, quote, putting a casino in Harlem. Can you explain to voters why you would want to pass on what could have been an engine of economic development for your ward?
I think that the process was backwards. We should have chosen a place of least resistance where we could get the most money, where the community was supportive. My community has never been supportive. At least the Bronzeville community has never been supportive. That's where the casino has been rumored to go for years. Luckily, they stood up and said, we don't want it there. And because it generally has deleterious or bad effects in communities that are already under-resourced. So the casino will go somewhere else. But I do want to talk about the Michael Reese development, which is being heralded as now one of the most equitable developments. That's what they wanted there. So we've got a $25 million commitment to education. We've got a 20% commitment to affordable housing on site.
Thank you.
That's the type of development that my constituents wanted and got.
Thank you, Alderman.
In the 4th Ward. Thank you.
Cam Buckner, you have been convicted of 2 DUIs, one as an elected official. What does that say to voters about your judgment?
Listen, I've had very clear conversations with the people of Chicago about my past mistakes. And not only have I owned them, but I've been accountable for them as well. And in the time that has passed, the years that have passed since then, I've had conversations with my pastor, with my family, with my constituents, and with my colleagues. And because of that, the people of Illinois, the people of the 26th District have continued to re-elect me. I've been elected in 4 different elections since then. The Speaker of the House has asked me twice to be a part of his leadership team, and the Black Caucus has asked me to chair them during one of the most tumultuous times for Black people in this state. Listen, I'm grateful for redemption and renewal, and the people of Chicago have seen the work that I've done, and I'll continue to do that work as their mayor.
Willie Wilson, you spent millions of dollars on your own campaign. You've given away gas and groceries before announcing your campaign. What do you say to those who say that you are buying votes?
Well, I would say you look back to 1996, front page of Wall Street Journal. We were giving away millions of dollars then in different parts of the country. And I'm not running for mayor in all those particular marketplaces. Chicago need help. You know, we're not going to sit by and wait until the city do something when we can help. When they ran out of face masks, I was the only one here to help. We gave away 6 million face masks, which equal to about $60 to $75 million in my pocket. We gave it away, more than in Chicago. But I said for those that think about it, why don't they get involved, you know, to help people. We gave them to people on the homeless. The chances are the people that's homeless out there not going to vote.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Brandon Johnson, bulk of your campaign funding has come from the Chicago Teachers Union and other major unions like SEIU, all very powerful organizations. How do you provide confidence to voters that you'll be independent and not beholden to these groups, especially when negotiating union contracts?
Yeah, look, I'm prepared to be the mayor of the city of Chicago for everyone. I'm happy to be supported by working people across the city, whether you are a school crossing guard, a teacher, a teacher's assistant, a custodial staff member. I'm grateful to represent the interests of working people. You know, look, I put forth a budget plan that speaks to equity and justice. We're going to eliminate the debt that has been caused by bad financing from a generation ago. And we're going to make critical investments up to $1 billion. And we're going to do that without raising property taxes. The people of Chicago should know that they're going to have a mayor that not only just loves this city, but loves people. I've done it as a teacher, as an organizer, as a Cook County commissioner, passing multi-billion-dollar budgets, working with 16 commissioners, constitutionally elected, protected, countywide elected officials. The city of Chicago should have complete confidence that my leadership will reflect the values of working people.
Paul Vallis, Black Chicago feels strongly about the Laquan McDonald video. You've been endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police. The leadership there came on my show and said that that was a justifiable shooting. How do you feel about that? And how will you bring Black Chicago and the police department together when they seemingly are so far apart on what police force is all about?
Well, look, I think I'm supported by the rank and file police officers, and that's why I have the FOP endorsement. But let me point out that I was actually brought in to help negotiate a settlement because they had gone almost 5 years without a contract. I not only was able to secure an 8-year contract for the police department, but it was on 2 conditions. Number 1, that I not accept any money from the FOP, and number 2, that they accept all the accountability provisions that had been approved in the sergeant's contract. And at the end of the day, they accomplished that. But there were close to 2,000 police officers ready to retire, and they would have retired had they waited a 5th year. So the bottom line is the rank and file police officers support me, and I don't get to choose the union leadership. I have to negotiate with them, whether it's the CTU or, for that matter, the CPD.
Can you share your thoughts on the Laquan McDonald video, though, sir?
Well, you know, I think if you recall, I was pretty outspoken on this issue 4 years ago in terms of condemning those involved. In fact, I was very outspoken in articulating that I actually thought that the punishment was not aggressive enough. And so that actually, in some areas, cost me support. So I thought I was pretty outspoken 4 years ago when I was interviewed.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Lightfoot, you've been accused of being combative and confrontational. Our latest poll has your favorability at about 22%, and your own budget chair has endorsed another candidate for mayor. What can you tell voters about how you will lead and work with others going forward?
Well, I think you have to look at where I've been. Yes, I'm aware of Alderwoman Dow's endorsement of Brandon Johnson, and I can only think that she agrees with him that almost $1 billion in new taxes on top of the people of the city, who working people, not just taxing the rich. His plan is actually going to hurt 8,400 teachers who make $100,000 or more. But what I'd say is look at what we've done. We've closed record budget deficits not once but twice. We secured a casino that was 30 years in the making. We're getting the red line extension done that has been talked about since the time of Richard J. Daley. And we have secured an agreement with the 7 counties around Chicago to be collaborators, not competitors.
I have a follow-up, Mayor. Well, why do you think your favorability rating right now is so low?
I think you have to put this in the context of the national mood. We are coming out of probably one of the most disruptive and traumatic experiences that people of our generation have ever experienced. The pandemic upended everything, our certainty about tomorrow, how we're feeling about ourselves. And we're still trying to navigate. I won't even call it a new normal yet. We're still trying to navigate where we are. In that context, it's understandable that there's a concern on the part of people because they're feeling anxious about what their today is, but also what their tomorrow is. And my goal is to continue working and collaborating to make sure that we move forward on issues for people.
Thank you. Roderick Story, you were forced into a runoff in the last election cycle and won by just 7%, having so narrowly kept your aldermanic seat. How do you expect to win citywide?
Well, if you were to ask Harold Washington that question in '77, you might
We're
not,
asking you.
You might have convinced him not to run. I'm asking. Well, one, I won the race, and two, I want to make sure that you understand a couple of things. One, during that term, I've had my best legislative term ever, and I also lost a friend at the same time during that election. But what I learned from that election is that I don't talk about myself enough. I don't talk about the accomplishments I have on the city council, which are many. I don't espouse them on social media. I'm not that kind of person. But again, we have some great people here that have been in the races and lost before and yet come back again. This is all learning experiences, and we're going to get better by learning from our mistakes and our challenges. And I've learned from them, and I think that made me a better person.
Congressman Garcia, in your campaign, you share your relationship with Harold Washington. You was an important part of building the Black and Brown Coalition. Black Chicago feels like they have not heard from the Brown leadership since Harold died. If you're elected mayor, you will make history. Are you willing to make to Black Chicago the same commitment that Harold made to you and the Latino community to include, share in the success of the city?
Most certainly. I have been committed to the empowerment and the advancement of all people in Chicago, especially Black and Brown. Why? I am the product of a movement that empowered both communities, elected Harold Washington, ushered in a new era of representative government like never before. It's a standard that has been lived up to by subsequent mayors since then. I am totally committed to that agenda. My cabinet, all of my appointments in the sister agencies will be reflective of Black Chicago, of all Chicago. I remain committed to equity and fairness for everyone. It's who I am. It's who I've been. And I've been a progressive since when it was hard to be a progressive, not popular and easy like today.
Thank you, Congressman. Moving on to community investment and opportunities. This will go to each of you. You will all be asked the same question. According to the 2020 census, Chicago lost 85,000 African Americans in the last 10 years. How do you plan to invest in the community to encourage Black residents to stay in Chicago? We're going to start with Jamal Green.
Well, this is a huge issue. Black families have been kicked out of Chicago, and I think that we got to make that clear. When they knocked down the project buildings and promised thousands of units, we didn't get those units, and they were pushed into neighborhoods full of poverty, without grocery stores, and some grocery stores that start shutting down. Most recently, Whole Foods in Inglewood. They don't have the basic human rights that they need. No pipeline to real middle-class jobs. No investment into young people, into having a high-quality education in those neighborhoods. So folks, of course, take the opportunity to leave our city. It's going to be imperative that our administration makes sure that we invest in housing and make sure that we're increasing our affordable housing supply, as well as making a pathway to home ownership, as well as taking ownership of public stores, a public bank, and public health.
Thank you. Alderwoman King.
Yes, I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing over the last 6.5 years. Michael Reese is one of 4 striking developments. No dissension, but we've got $25 million commitment to schools, 20% commitment to affordable housing on site, 60% commitment to minority participation. But that's what I do all the time. You could talk about 4400 Grove, or which had $40 million, 89% commitment to minorities, went to minorities already, 69% to African Americans. In my ward, African Americans are seeing above 40% participation. That's what I will continue to do, bring true equity to the city of Chicago.
Cam Buckner?
Let's make no mistake, Chicago has broken countless promises to black people in this city. And we have done so much with so little for so long that now it's the only way that we've been used to operating. We talk a lot about Invest Southwest, and unfortunately, that program has been a lot of smoke and mirrors. Let's be real about Egress Southwest, the fact that black people on the south and west side of Chicago are leaving here. They're leaving here in droves. We have to do the things to build up these communities. Richard Townsville at the Lawndale Christian Development Corporation talks about making sure there's an ombudsman in places like North Lawndale and Roseland and places who have been left behind, making sure that we have construction loan programs and flexible emergency funds for people who have been left out of the conversation. That will happen in a Buckner administration and will be the most affordable housing-friendly city in the country.
Thank you. Willie Wilson?
Well, first thing we have to do is make crime illegal again, make all neighborhoods safe, reduce property taxes. You know, you can bring in all the new development that you want to, unless you get crime down, it ain't really going nowhere. People are not going to come into a neighborhood when crime is high, taxes high. They won't come in to do business. You know, so those things you have to get down first. Then you start to make an investment. Then you start to teaming up with major corporation who has the experience and knowledge, and you begin to put them together and put trade so people can be developed. $25 million not enough money. You need billions of dollars. You need some foundation there first, solid. Once you get that solid, then
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Brandon Johnson?
Yeah, people have lost confidence in this administration because she's broken every single promise. And she continues to mislead the people of Chicago. What she just espoused about a 3.5% income tax on people who make $100,000 a year or more is just a lie. It's not in my budget plan. The particular publication that stated it retracted it. In fact, they call it the tax to rich plan. In fact, that's the same plan that Joe Biden read, right? Because he actually said that a teacher and a firefighter should not pay the same tax rate as a billionaire. The bottom line is this. As Cook County Commissioner, I built an entire budget around black lives. Tony Preckwinkle, the president of Cook County Board of Commissioners, used it as a guiding principles to eliminate up to $1 billion of medical debt, the largest amount of universal guaranteed basic income that goes to black women overwhelmingly, and we put hundreds of millions of dollars in violence prevention. I'm ready to lead day one, and I'm always going to tell you the truth.
Thank you, Brandon Johnson.
Thank you.
Mayor, would you like to respond to the direct?
And that was a response to her.
Sure. I'm happy to respond.
I just took that, okay?
I'm happy to respond. If he doesn't agree with taxing people over $100,000, say right now here that you will never support such a plan. The floor is yours.
You can direct the question to the viewers. This is not.
I'm
not
saying
a debate.
that if Commissioner Johnson is not planning to impose a tax on people earning $100,000 or more, he should say right here and right now that he will never support such a plan.
Paul Vallis?
Yes. Look.
Silence is deafening.
Well, listen, do I get a chance to respond or not?
Yeah.
Because I'm happy to.
I think you should, yeah.
I just said that, Madam Mayor. I just said that to you, to the people of the city of Chicago. I'm going to make sure that we eliminate the deficit in my first term. We're going to make up to $1 billion into critical investments without raising property taxes. The mayor continues to mislead people. It's why folks have lost confidence in her. You can have confidence in me because I'm always going to tell you the truth.
Without
moving on.
raising
That's enough of that discussion there. We'll move on to Mr. Vallis.
Look, we're down to 16% middle-income families, 16%. And there's two primary reasons. Number one, public safety. Number two, schools. The absence of quality schools. That's why there's a massive exodus across all demographics. I mean, what would I do? I would prioritize public safety, returning to the concept of community-based policing, and I would work to improve neighborhood schools, transformation community schools. But I would also do two other things. I would really turn the $28 billion that the Fifth Floor controls in annual spending into a true investment equity document that does not neglect any communities, and I would institutionalize an investment strategy on the south and west sides that would simply not be warmed over Rahm Emanuel, or for that matter, a series of one-off projects, sustained investment.
Thank you, Mr. Vallis. Let's move on to Alderman Sawyer.
No.
I'm sorry. Mayor Lightfoot, I apologize. Your rebuttal got me out of order. Apologies.
So the question was about how do you stem the loss of African Americans from our city? You do what we've been doing over these last 4 years. You do Invest Southwest, which is $2.2 billion of new money going into the South and the West sides. You put $100 million into small businesses. We're critical backbones of these communities. You make sure that you do affordable housing, which is why we've made a commitment of $1 billion, and we've already brought almost 20,000 new units online in the last 4 years. You stitch back the social safety net by doing things like, for example, making sure that you've got mental health services for free available in all of our 77 neighborhoods. And you don't just serve 3,600, which is what we inherited. You serve 74,000, which is where we were last year. You make and there's a lot of other things that you can do to bring back the black population.
Yes, when we're talking about community investment, particularly in our business corridors, obviously we want to make them brighter, safer, and cleaner. A couple of things that we can do directly is, one, reallocate the money that we spend, for example, in our density bonuses that developers pay right now, get them to areas that are underdeserved, south and west sides. We also want to have a better use of the TIF program. We want to eliminate those TIFs that are already in affluent, great areas and really focus down on the areas that have true blight, true disinvestment, and get those dollars toward those areas. We want to make sure that all 77 of our communities are self-sustainable. That means they should all have all the amenities that a more affluent community should have: grocery stores, entertainment areas, professional services. We want to make sure that they all have those areas and they don't have to go outside to get those goods and services.
Thank you, Alderman. Congressman Garcia.
To address the historic redlining and disinvestment, under-resourced schools, and violence, we've got to invest in the west side and the south side like never before. Comprehensive community development is something I was trained in at the University of Illinois at Chicago. I'm an urban planner. What I would do differently is I would work with the groups that have already developed community plans which are comprehensive. They include new housing. They include connecting to health centers. They include connecting to schools and bringing retail, while working to address the public safety concerns to make those neighborhoods safe and to thrive once again. Comprehensive community development. I would also look at establishing a manufacturing district on the west side along I-290, ideally suited, lots of large lots. I would work with those community groups.
Thank you, Congressman.
All right, now let's turn it over to the tribe's Tiffany Walden, who's representing the National Association of Black Journalists, Chicago. She has a community investment question. And this question is going to go to Alderman Sawyer, State Rep Buckner, and Mr. Willie Wilson.
Only.
Only. Only.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. The West Side has experienced disinvestment since the uprisings following the 1968 assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And today, in East Garfield Park, the median household income is $23,000 compared to $62,000 for the entire city. What policies will your administration implement to help bring Black West Siders out of poverty? Alderman Sawyer.
First of all, what we will do on the west side, we'll do all over the city, and this provide opportunity. And that starts at the beginning. I did hear something, and I was actually encouraged by hearing the mayor state that once the individuals in Wadsworth can get their work permits, they can get a job guaranteed. I want to make that same guarantee to the people on the west side and the south side. Obviously, we have the resources and the ability to get it done. Let's have the intentionality now to get it done. Let's make sure that those on the west side that are willing and able, that want to work, let's get them to work. We have vacancies right now. I know we were all at a forum a few days ago, talked about manufacturing vacancies and all other city and we have vacancies here in the city of Chicago at CTA, Park District, and the like. We want to make sure that those that want a job and apply for a job have a real opportunity to get a job.
Thank you, Alderman. Let's go to Cam Buckner.
Yeah, so I talked about this in the previous answer about the fact that the west side of Chicago has been neglected for way too long. April 4th, 1968, the day that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis, we have not seen true investment in this community to rebuild since then. And so I've talked about making sure there's somebody in City Hall specifically charged with the task of development in that community. And that development has to happen with that community, not to that community. North Lawndale, Austin, East Garfield Park have to be at the table to help craft what their future is going to be. Listen, it's not just about money and resources. It's about doing it in a way that's complementary to what the people in that community need. The city has ignored them for way too long, and that will stop under a Buckner administration.
Mr. Wilson?
Well, look, I was in Chicago and lived in Garfield Park in 1968 when Dr. King got assassinated. So I was there, you know. And the same how it looked then when it got done with the riot, it basically looked the same way. If you start to taxing rich people, you run them out of this city, major corporation brings in new business and subcontract small businesses. You know, you're gonna have to get a hold of this tax situation, and get it under control. Right now, the mayor talking about raising taxes. It's more than one way to fix a city. It probably you're gonna raise taxes to fix a city.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We do appreciate all of your responses so far. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more of our mayoral forum with the 9 candidates running for mayor. Stay with us.
My name is Montel Gales. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the Business Leadership Council. Tonight, we're going to talk about Black issues with our candidates. Why is this important? Today, there are more than 6 million small businesses across the United States, of which 2.3% of those are African American. Why is that important? Well, today in Chicago, of the businesses that we have that represent African American concerns, only 9% of those dollars are being spent with Black businesses from the city of Chicago. Tonight, we're going to have an opportunity to ask questions of our candidates as to what they see as the future for Black business in Chicago. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our co-sponsors for this event, NABJ Chicago, WVON, the Urban League, and NBC5 live streaming service. We hope you enjoy what you hear tonight and that you get answers about what the directions are for these candidates as we look at Black issues in Chicago.
Good evening. I'm Brandon Pope of WCIU and WBEZ Chicago and proud president of the Chicago chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists. On behalf of our more than 150 members, I want to thank all the candidates tonight for sharing their passion and vision for the city we all love. You know, the need for Black journalists holding truth to power has never been more urgent than right now in this moment. We are thankful to have a seat at the table. We're looking forward to a great discussion about the issues Black Chicagoans care about most. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Freeman Wilson, and I'm the president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League. We know that the upcoming mayoral election is one of the most consequential in modern times. Why is it important to Black families? Because of issues like the racial wealth gap, police-community relations, the ability to get affordable housing, and to get careers, and to ensure our children's education, and that our elders are able to retire with dignity. We want you to hear every candidate address those issues that are important to us.